Hi. A little while ago, Carolyn, who is a medical professional from England, and Adele, who's one of our directors here in Australia, got online for a conversation. I loved listening to that conversation. And I just watched a little bit more of it again, and I was just, again, I absolutely loved it. I loved hearing the story of how three people from England, Carolyn, her daughter Ariane, and her colleague, Carrie Ann, came from a country thousands of kilometres and made such an impact in a group of children's lives. It's a story of challenge, it's a story with some laughter, it's a story of thinking that it would never come to happen, and yet it did. And so I hope that you will not just watch and enjoy these next few minutes, but I hope that you will watch and allow it to say something to you. These three are truly Heart for Kids heroes because they changed a little boy's life forever. Walter's his name. And this is the start of the story of Walter's Forever family.
Well, thank you for making yourself available to have a quick chat about your experience with Heart for Kids. I'm excited to hear about your story, about your experience when visiting one of our locations and sites in China. And keen to hear about what has happened since then. So maybe before we start, can you tell us a bit about yourself, about your family, what you do?
Yeah, sure. Lovely to see you, Dawn. Thanks so much for having me. So I'm a occupational therapist, and I've specialised in working with children, so that's what I kind of do for my work. I'm passionate about seeing children fulfil their potential and just be everything that they can be in their lives. So that's me as a kind of professional. But as a mum to now 3 children, I've got Ariane, who's 16, and Lauren is 13, just turned 13 recently, and Alex, who's also just turned 5. So Alex is our adopted son from China, and you'll hear more about him as we go. But so I've got 3 beautiful children. I've got my husband Richard.
And how did you discover about the work that the Heart for Kids ministry does?
I've got a small team that work with me. So there's 3 of us occupational therapists, and one of my colleagues in particular, we both had a real heart for going to the nations and going to, particularly to countries where they perhaps don't have the same resources that we are, just kind of have at our fingertips really in the UK. And so I'd visited China as a student, and visited a couple of orphanages while I was there. And I also went to Romania and worked in an orphanage there as a student for a couple of weeks. And it was before I was qualified, and I didn't really feel like I had much to offer, really. And so I kind of always in my head had thought, I really want to go back to a country like that at some point when, as an occupational therapist, when I kind of feel more skilled up and a lot of the children that I saw in those orphanages had disabilities and not really the know-how of how to care for them given their needs. So I'd always kind of in my head just, knew that at some point I wanted to go back and be able to give more. And in 2017, my colleague and I, we were both talking about, actually we would just love to be able to go and serve in some way and give back something that we've learned. And so we started looking around at different charities and telling them a bit about us and what we were wanting to do. And all the charities turned us down. They were like, unless you can commit to us for at least 3 months, we just don't want to know, So we were like, oh, we're so desperate to do this, but we can't. Like every door is shut. And then Carrie Ann, both of us go to our local churches in different areas, and Carrie Ann's dad had been a pastor of a church and remembered having some contact with some charity that was somewhere in Australia. And so he started kind of just putting up feelers for us and like going back through his contacts of like, somebody told me about this charity. And so we, through that, we got in contact with David. And just said, David, this is us. This is what we would love to do. Is there any chance that we can serve you in any way? And his response was immediate. Like, we would so love to have you. We would just love to have you on board. Tell me more, about what you do. And so it was the start of a very, very special relationship, actually. We started doing a lot of research into who you were and what you were all about. And we were like, this is perfect. This is just where we want to be and the kind of thing that we want to be involved in. And so that was kind of the start of us being involved. It was just an immediate yes from David, and we would love to have you on board with our team.
And how long were you with Dove Wings? How long were you there? So it's not 3 months.
We just said to David, could we come and do an initial visit for 2 weeks? And so we went over in 2017. My daughter had just moved school, so she was 13 years old, and she had just recently moved schools because her previous school had closed, and so we had to find a new school for her. And her tutor at the time was just a really lovely man, really interested in his students, took a personal interest in them. And we went for our first parents' evening. And while we were there, we ended up talking about, I've got this upcoming trip to China, we're going to be going and we don't quite know what it's going to look like, but we're going to be serving in this orphanage, and we're really excited about going. And he just said, wait, I've got to show you something. And he ran off and got this piece of paper, and he had sat down with his students and asked them to just map out where they saw themselves over the next few years, anything that they felt that they really wanted to do. And Ariane had written on hers, I want to travel the world, and I want to go and work in orphanages in countries that aren't as privileged. And he just said to me, you've got to take her. You've got to take her with you.
Did you know prior to that was on her heart as well?
Ariane's just always wanted to travel, but I didn't realize quite how much she had connected with actually I want to serve and travel. I hadn't seen that until the teacher showed me this piece of paper. I was like, wow, this is a real love to travel, but it's a real love to serve. And in the UK, they are very strict with school time. They think you can't get time off school easily. And so when her teacher said to me, you've got to take her with you, and we already had the dates that we had kind of worked out with David of when it might work for Heart4Kids Kids for us to go. And so I said to him, well, it's during school time. It's going to mean that she's off school for at least 2 weeks. And he was like, that's fine. I'll sort that out with the headmaster. It's not going to be any problem at all. You've got to take her.
That's amazing.
So it was really an incredible start to our connection.
I'm just blown away by how a seed or message or conversation that someone's had gave you that connection that eventually led you to Dove Wings, China Heart, as it was called in that day, and Heart for Kids. I know for us, for both Tom and myself, we went as a family to Heart for Kids to visit the work of Heart for Kids in China. And we love that Heart for Kids, opens its door to welcome families and people of all ages that really just have a heart for wanting to serve. So